Hey everyone, so this is going to be lesson 2 for unit 2, and today's lesson is going to focus on how the farming villages transformed into city-states within the region of Mesopotamia. So in the last lesson, you got to see the different characteristics that historians look for when they're analyzing an area to see if it's a civilization and what kinds of things go into making an area a civilization. Today, you're going to get to see how the farming villages within this Mesopotamia region developed into large cities, why they kind of came together, and then how these cities became the first civilizations. So, how they fit those characteristics. And again, we are looking at the region of Mesopotamia. As you can see on the map, the little red circle popped up. This is where we're looking at, is present-day Iraq. And we're looking at the southern part primarily for this beginning stages because this is where kind of these cities first took place, and we're looking in this area of Sumer. So Mesopotamia is this whole region. It's broken up into different sections, but we're primarily looking at the Sumer region today. So the earliest villages in this area began to kind of take shape and really form dating back to 3500 BCE. So they really were kind of the starting of these villages, of the farming settlements that we learned about previously. So we're going to have people starting to settle in this area. However, the people really faced many challenges with this area, as we saw with some of the other basics when we talked about farming villages. They started to see food shortages because of the large amount of people, uncontrolled water supply, and they started to have to deal with attacks by neighboring communities. So battles and fighting one another is nothing new, but we're really starting to see full communities attack one another. So all of these problems really make it hard for the villages to meet the needs of the people. So they're going to have to find ways to solve these problems in order to survive. So the first problem is that where they first started to settle, there were major food shortages. So they're settling in the beginning within this area near the Zagros Mountains. So they're in the foothills because originally this area provided many of the things that they needed. However, eventually the land did not support the amount of people and the amount of food that was needed to feed all of these people. So the people soon began to move from the Zagros Mountains down into this river valley area between the Tigris and Euphrates. And like I said, this is the region of Sumer. And driven for the need for food, more and more people are going to start to move to this region. And while the river definitely is going to have its advantages because of giving you a water source, easy for transportation, easy to have water for you, crops, food, or animals, all these different things, it's also going to bring issues because one of the biggest things is during the spring months, these rivers flood. So the villagers and the farmers within these villages have to work together, and they start to create different systems in order to protect the farmland, to protect their housing, everything from this flooding situation. And then they also start to create water systems to help manage water the rest of the year. So this is going to bring more and more people to the area, and it's going to bring the people together because they have to work together to fix these things, and it's going to have them creating new technologies and new jobs. So as the villages start to band together, they are creating these cities. They're getting larger and larger and actually developing cities. And as these cities grow, they're going to end up competing with one another over things like who has the right to use the water, who should have control over the water, and a bunch of other different things that have to do with land use. And sometimes these fights end up becoming major battles with a lot of people losing their lives. So in order to protect their cities, the Sumerians started to build strong walls around the perimeter of the city. So they would build these giant walls to protect everyone, and they would even dig moats around the walls to kind of help with an extra layer of protection. So these cities started to become these giant complexes where all of the people started to live within the city walls. That way they would be protected. So you can see a lot of the farmland is going to stay outside of the city wall, and then the people are going to build their houses inside. And this is going to make these cities even more complex and even more highly populated because they're in this close-knit area. So, in order to fix the problems that the Sumerians faced, they ended up creating solutions that led them to creating major cities. So, they're going to be going from these separate farming villages to banding together in order to fix the problems, and then building these giant cities together, which are known as city states. So you'll learn about that a little more in a couple lessons, but just know that the cities within Mesopotamia are known as city states. And these city states are actually going to be some of the first true civilizations. They follow those characteristics that we previously learned about. So they found a way to get a stable food supply. They lived in advanced cities. The areas had specialized workers. We're going to learn how they created complex institutions, developed advanced technology, create record keeping, and developed cultures. So just by moving together in this region, we see how they got their stable food supply, started to have specialized workers, developed advanced technologies, and lived in advanced cities. And we're going to see some of these other ones in some future lessons. But this is the basis of how the people and farming villages within Mesopotamia, why they had to come together, how they built their city states, and how the city states began the first civilizations.